My boss hadn't stepped foot inside our office in almost 3 years. Not once. Not for a meeting, not for a check-in, not even to say hello during the holidays. Instead, he ran the entire company from the comfort of his home office, firing off stiff, emotionless emails like some kind of disembodied overlord hovering above the rest of us. Every morning, I'd sit at my desk, power up my computer, and wait for the familiar ding of his newest demands. Sometimes the emails were just instructions. Sometimes they were complaints. And sometimes they were full on rants about issues he never bothered to understand. The only person he ever spoke to was our office manager, Claire. She was the bridge between us and him. A bridge he stomped across whenever he needed something, but never appreciated. Thankfully, Claire was nothing like him. She treated us like human beings, laughed with us, checked in on us. And when something ridiculous came down from Mount Boss, she'd give us the rundown in the break room, rolling her eyes dramatically while we all groaned together. So when she walked in one afternoon with that particular tight smile, the one that meant she had news, we all braced for impact. She gathered us near the printer and lowered her voice. "Well," she said, "he's complaining again." Someone groaned. Someone else laughed. I felt that familiar knot of irritation tighten in my stomach. What was it this time? Paper usage? Breathing too loudly? Not typing fast enough? Claire sighed. "He says, we're on the internet too much during office hours." The room erupted with disbelief. Does he think we're running Netflix marathons? What does he expect? 2407 spreadsheet staring? Is he serious? But then came the part that made everything go still. Claire hesitated. "He knows because he's been logging into your computers remotely after hours." A silence fell so suddenly it felt like the air got sucked out of the room. I felt every muscle in my back stiffen. My thoughts scrambled. "He does no hat." She nodded, looking both apologetic and annoyed. "He goes through your browser histories at night." Every night. He watches what you search, what websites you visit, all of it." My stomach turned. It wasn't that any of us were doing anything wrong. We weren't wasting entire days messing around online. But the idea of him sneaking into my computer after I'd gone home, watching everything I'd clicked, judging me from behind a screen like some invisible hall monitor with too much free time. It felt dirty, sneaky, violating. He had the right to look. It was company equipment. But keeping it a secret, snooping like some covert spy instead of simply telling us. That was the part that made it so deeply unsettling. We spent the rest of that day irritated and restless. I kept replaying the idea over and over. Him sitting at home, logging in, scrolling through my tabs with that self-satisfied frown he probably wore all the time. Judging. Waiting for something to complain about. And that's when something petty, ridiculous, and just childish enough started to form in my mind. A spark of rebellion. A little voice whispering, "If he's going to snoop, give him something worth snooping on." The next morning, I came in, sat down, cracked my knuckles, and started my plan. I spent the entire day searching for jobs. I looked up every possible vacancy in my industry. Entry-level, senior-level, managerial roles, roles I wasn't qualified for, roles I was overqualified for. I Googled salaries, competitors. What should I be earning? How to negotiate a higher salary? Companies hiring immediately? I even clicked into a few job application pages and hovered over Apply Now, just long enough to leave a trail that would show up in the history. Every click, every search, every scroll, I left wide open. A breadcrumb trail for a nosy man who lived for snooping. And then came the final touch. Right before packing up to go home, I opened the browser, clicked into the search bar, and typed, "Why is my boss such an idiot?" Except I didn't type, "Who'diot." I typed something significantly stronger. Something he would absolutely not want to read from one of his employees. Something that would hit him right in his fragile, micromanaging ego. I left it there on the screen, unsearched, unhidden, bold as daylight. I turned off my monitor, grabbed my bag, and walked out feeling a wicked little thrill in my chest. That night, I kept imagining him, logging in, expecting to catch someone innocently checking Facebook, only to see the big bright insult waiting for him like a punch to the jaw. And then, like a cherry on top of a beautifully petty Sunday, scrolling through 8 hours of job searching. I slept beautifully. 2 days later, his email arrived. It didn't say, "How dare you?" It didn't say, "We need to talk." It didn't say, "You're fired," or "Explain yourself," or anything emotional at all. It said, very simply, "I've reviewed your recent performance and decided to give you a pay increase, effective immediately. Keep up the good work." I stared at the screen for a full 10 seconds, stunned into silence. A pay rise. Not a scolding, not paranoia, not accusations. A raise. I actually laughed out loud. Claire heard me from down the hall and called. What happened? I walked to her office, holding my phone like it was a trophy. "He gave me a raise." She blinked at me. "What? Why?" I shrugged dramatically. I guess he looked at my browser history. The look on her face was priceless. Equal parts disbelief and amusement. "You're kidding." "Nopey." I grinned. Seems like he didn't like the idea of me job hunting, or calling him Anne. I paused, choosing a safer word. "An idiot." We both burst out laughing. From that day on, I treated my browsing history like a delicate relic. If I looked up anything personal, banking, social media, even a recipe, I wiped the slate clean before leaving. But deep down, I'd already won. Because here's the thing, he snooped on us because he thought he held all the power. He thought watching us secretly made him smarter, more in control, more authoritative. But what he saw that night wasn't incompetence. It wasn't laziness. It wasn't anything he could use to scold me. What he saw was the reality he'd been ignoring. That employees aren't mindless machines. That we notice when we're being undervalued. That we can, and will, leave if we're treated like replaceable cogs. And that one tiny, petty act of rebellion forced him to face something he never would have confronted on his own. Whether he admitted it or not, he knew exactly why I had typed that question. And he knew the answer wasn't flattering. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying someone. Sometimes it's about making them sweat just enough to rethink the way they treat you. Making them realize that their power isn't as absolute as they believed. And sometimes the sweetest revenge is the one that not only hits them in their ego, but gets you a pay raise. Funny how life works like that.